Good morning, viewers and listeners of Concerned Citizens Media. Thank you again for coming back. Today is September the 2022. And I have some news to share with you. I will start with the No More movement organized Hermela Araguay and Naaman Zallaka and this No More group. They have a protest against the United States, against the TPLF in Washington, D.C., in front of White House. Last time they did in front of State Department. Now another protest in front of the White House. So I will play a little bit of that one. Then I have more videos plus United Nations report, the first report about the situation, especially the crimes against humanity in Ethiopia. So there is a report on that one, plus the final day of Queen Elizabet II. Plus other news. Thank you again for joining me. Let's listen to this group, this No More group. They are active, but the number is less. They are very shrinking. The support for Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed and the support for Eritrea is shrinking, but they are still active. Especially Hermela Aragawi is very active in this No More movement. Let's listen to their message.
Turn to work towards a negotiated peace settlement with TPLF through a process led by the African Union under the principle of African solutions to African problems. Yes. But TPLF has proven to be the enemy of peace not only for the last 3 decades, but more obviously for the last 2 years in which the Biden administration has counterintuitively emboldened TPLF terrorists. To add insult to injury, the Biden administration now seeks to open a new round of negotiations in neighboring countries outside of the established African Union process supported by most Ethiopians and Africans. It scapegoats Eritrea, a peaceful nation towards which some U.S. officials apparently have an inexplicable, quote, grudge against. It blackmails Ethiopia's leaders by threatening to impose sanctions. It censors Twitter accounts of those promoting peace in the Horn of Africa. It sends troops to the region in the name of fighting terror, which paradoxically promotes more terrorism. These unbelievable and shocking actions by the Biden administration have united the entire Horn of Africa, the African diaspora, and peace-loving citizens here in the United States. Therefore, we gather here today to say, no more to the exploitation of Africa, no more disinformation, division, and war used to promote and maintain that exploitation, no more TPLF, no more to its child soldiers, no more terror on Amharas and Afars, no more scapegoating Eritrea, no more puppet clanist governments in Somalia, no more tribalism, clanism, and religious extremism. No more divide and conquer. No more terrorism. No more sanctions. No more gunboat diplomacy. No more interfering in the affairs of sovereign African nations. No more neo-colonialism in Africa. No more. No more. No more insulting the intelligence of the African people. No more gaslighting us. No more censorship of African voices. No more racism. So we stand here to say, no more to all of these things. We call on the Biden administration to demand the surrender and total disarmament of TPLF without reservation. Again, we call on the Biden administration to demand the surrender and total disarmament of TPLF without reservation. Without U.S. support, TPLF cannot exist. Their time is up. Their time is up. The people here today are united and will never be defeated. The people here today are united and will never be defeated. We are one people with one heart. We are honest and hardworking American citizens who wish the best for the American people and all peoples around the world. So, to those in Congress, in the White House, to Americans who want to be on the right side of history, we hope you will consider and respect our concerns today. Thank you so much.
Okay.
We have
Okay, I will come back to that one. So that is their message. That is their aggressive tactic against the United States for the diplomatic mission, economic assistance, and everything they do to settle the war we have in Ethiopia. So this group are against sanction. The sanction is intended to stop the war. So no more sanctions, and they say no more exploitation of Africa, no more disinformation. All this is against, as I said, this group is against the United States. They are pro-Abiy, pro-Isaias Afwerki, and that they are standing against the United States call for peaceful resolution for the ongoing bloody war in that country. So they are no more. They are, repeatedly, aggressively carrying out Abiy Ahmed's policy. And they are fighting on behalf of Abiy Ahmed against the United States. So that is their objective, and their dream is to disarm TPLF, then expose all Tigrayans to the dictatorship in the making in Ethiopia. That will not happen. That's their dream anyway. So they are, insulting the United States, really, insulting and demonizing the United States effort, and despite all this assistance we are getting from the United States, diplomatic, economic, and other. So this group is very dangerous group. So that is, and they will continue. They will not stop anyway. So I will come back to the other news and on the video, but let me read the report. The United Nations report is out and is warning about crimes against humanity in Ethiopia. So you remember that 3 experts already assigned for to investigate all the crimes committed in Ethiopia. So this is the first report of that group. Let me read this. United Nations report warns of crimes against humanity in Ethiopia. UN investigators said Monday they believed Ethiopia's government was behind ongoing crimes against humanity in Tigray, and warned the resumption of the conflict there increased the risk of further atrocity crimes. In its first report, the Commission of Human Rights Experts on Ethiopia said it had found evidence of widespread violations by all sides since fighting erupted in the northern Tigray region in November 2020 by all groups. This is, I think, is a little bit exaggerated. The commission, created by the United Nations Human Rights Council last December and made up of 3 independent rights experts, said it had reasonable ground to believe that in several instances these violations amount to war crimes and crimes against humanity. The experts listed a long line of horrific violations, from extrajudicial killings to intentional starvation and rape and sexual violence perpetrated on a staggering scale. And they highlighted in particular the situation in Tigray, where the government and its allies have denied around 6 million people access to basic services, including the internet and banking, for more than a year. Severe restrictions on humanitarian access have left 90% of the region's population in dire need of assistance. 90% of population in dire need of assistance. Shocking. The report said there were reasonable ground to believe that the federal government and the allied regional state governments have committed and continue to commit the crimes against humanity of persecution on ethnic grounds and other inhumane acts. They were intentionally causing great suffering or serious injury to body or mental or physical health based on their ongoing denial and obstruction of humanitarian assistance to Tigray, the report said. In a statement, Commission Chair Kari Betty Murungi described the humanitarian crisis in Tigray as shocking, both in terms of scale and duration. The widespread denial and obstruction of access to basic services, food, healthcare, and humanitarian assistance is having a devastating impact on the civilian population, she said. She condemned likely crimes against humanity and warned that the government appeared to be using starvation as a method of warfare. Very serious accusation by this United Nations human rights expert. I repeat, this is a very serious one. She condemned likely crimes against humanity and warned that the government appeared to be using starvation as a method of warfare. The government of Ethiopia accused of this tactic, starving the population by sealing all the borders and denying all basic services, no electricity, no water, no food, no internet, no telecommunication, no banking. I never seen a government like this before. This is really inhumane and a cruel penalty of the general population. And so the United Nations expert confirmed that the government is using starvation as a tactic. Murungi called on the government to immediately restore basic services and ensure full and unfettered humanitarian access. She also urged Tigrayan forces to ensure that humanitarian agencies are able to operate without impediment. Atrocity crimes. Since war broke out in November 2020, thousands have died and many more have been forced to flee their homes as the conflict expanded from Tigray to the neighboring regions of Amara and Afar. A truce in March has raised hopes for a peaceful resolution of the war, but those who were dashed when combat resumes last month. With a resumption of hostilities in northern Ethiopia, there is a very real risk of further civilian suffering and further atrocity crimes, Murungi warned. Even before the fighting resumed, the experts said they had found evidence that and sexual violence had been perpetrated on a staggering scale since the conflict erupted, especially targeting Tigrayan women and girls. An earlier joint investigation by the UN Rights Office and Ethiopia's Human Rights Commission determined that possible war crimes and crimes against humanity had been committed by all sides. Tigrayan authorities welcomed the report, with a spokesman telling AFP they had always maintained that Ethiopia's government was responsible for crimes against humanity in the region. Monday's report, meanwhile, also found reasonable grounds to believe that Tigrayan forces had committed war crimes, including large-scale killings of Amara civilians, rape, and sexual violence. Hatred along ethnic lines. The experts voiced alarm at their findings, which they said reflect profound polarization and hatred along ethnic lines in Ethiopia. This has created a disturbing cycle of extreme violence and retribution, which raises the imminent threat of further and more pronounced atrocity crimes, their report warned. The report, due to be presented to the Rights Council on September 22, made a number of recommendations, including all parties to the conflict immediately cease hostilities and violations, including those that might amount to war crimes or crimes against humanity. It calls on the UN Rights Office to ensure full monitoring of the situation in Ethiopia and urges the Ethiopian government, its Eritrean ally, and authorities in Tigray to investigate and bring all perpetrators of abuses to justice. Credit for this Yahoo News. But the last one, I don't think this group able to bring anyone accountable. The Eritrean forces and the government of Ethiopia and authorities in Tigray can investigate and bring those responsible into justice. That is, yeah, it's good to raise it, but it will not happen. That's why United Nations is assigning these experts and to document, to investigate, then bring those responsible to International Criminal Court. Abiy cannot bring anyone to court. No, that's it's a wishful thinking. So that's the report. That's the first report by this expert, and it's a damning report, really. And Ethiopian government still sealed sealed off the Tigray region from the world, and intentionally starving about 6 million people. Still, the government does not pay attention to the calls by the UN, US, European Union to open up, stop the ongoing bloodshed, and sit down for a peaceful talk or peaceful negotiation. But still, no sign of that, and they want to destroy the general public by sealing off, by starving. And then I think what they're thinking is, when the people are starved through time, then they will become weaker and easily defeated by these Amara militia, Fano, Eritrean forces. That is their dream, but that is not happening, and that tactic is not working anyway. This is U.S. Special Envoy for the Horn of Africa, Mike Hammer work in Ethiopia. This is for media notes, Office of the Spokesperson, U.S. State Department. Special Envoy for the Horn of Africa, SEHOA. Mike Hammer arrived in Ethiopia on September 5 to encourage efforts for an immediate stop to the fighting and participation by the government of Ethiopia and the Tigray regional authorities in African Union-led peace talks. Special Envoy Hammer met with Ethiopian government officials, AU representatives, and international partners on next step forward, and returned to Washington September 16. He will continue diplomatic efforts on the margin of the UN General Assembly in New York during high-level week beginning September 19. During his visit to Ethiopia, Special Envoy Hammer met with the AU's High Representative Olusegun Obasanjo on several occasions to discuss how the United States can partner to support the peace process. In addition, Special Envoy for Horn of Africa Hammer met with his counterparts, the UN Special Representative to the Secretary General Hannah Ted, and the EU Special Envoy for Horn of Africa Annette Webb, as well as other international partners. Meanwhile, Assistant Secretary Mali Fee, who attended the inauguration of Kenya President Ruto in Nairobi, also advanced these diplomatic efforts aimed at getting AU-led talks launched in pursuit of peace. The United States welcomes the government of Ethiopia's restatement of its continued readiness to participate in talks, as well as the September 11 statement by Tigrayan regional authorities accepting an AU-led process, including by naming its delegation. Based on this commitment, the United States seeks tangible follow-through from all parties to the conflict to enter into negotiations in good faith. Special Envoy Hammer and Charge d'Affaires ad interim Tracy Ann Jacobson at the U.S. Embassy in Addis Ababa also met with Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed and with Deputy Prime Minister Foreign Minister Demek McConnell to discuss U.S. concerns about the renewed fighting in the north of Ethiopia and Eritrea's re-entry into the conflict, as well as the urgent need to redouble effort to begin AU-led talks aimed at bringing a permanent end to the conflict. During his meetings with Ethiopian government officials, as well as with Tigrayan regional authorities, Special Envoy Hammer reiterated the need for unhindered humanitarian access in the Tigray, Afar, and Amara regions, stressed the need to respect human rights and avoid civilian casualties, raised ongoing reports of ethnically based detentions, and pressed for accountability for those responsible for atrocities and justice for the victims and survivors. Finally, he met with AU Commission Chairperson Musa Faki Mohammed, Minister of Justice Dr. Gideon Timotheus, and the National Security Advisor Ridwan Hussein. The United States is committed to the unity, sovereignty, and the territorial integrity of Ethiopia, and seeks peace and stability for the benefits of all Ethiopians. A special envoy, Hammer, received briefings on the ongoing severe droughts in eastern and southern Ethiopia, including delivery of humanitarian assistance, as the United States continues to be the largest donor of humanitarian assistance to Ethiopia. So this is the work of Mike Hammer to end the hostilities and for unhindered humanitarian assistance to Tigray region and ending this bloody hostility, bloody war. I don't know, Abiy Ahmed and his close associates. I don't know how many people should die for their seat. How many people? Already thousands and thousands of people impacted by this continued bloody war, and they are not still satisfied to come to the table seriously and end these hostilities. So still we appreciate the United States. We are not like no more group. We are happy how the United States is handling. They are pushing, really. They are pushing for diplomatic solution since the beginning of this conflict. They are pushing for the United Nations to take action. No action as long as Russia and China is there. So that's why Abiy is emboldened, Eritrea is emboldened, and continue this bloody war. And Eritrea still refuse to withdraw from Ethiopia. They are meddling in Ethiopia's business widely. They just silently doing their dirty work, teaching Abiy Ahmed how to become a dictator and continue the bloodshed among Ethiopians. So far, no ending sight. And the European unions are also just talking, and no sanctions so far. The US is doing some sanctions, even though it's not openly said who are sanctions. The US is putting some sanction. AGOA is also restricted, which is good sign, with a warning. But Abiy Ahmed and the Eritreans, they don't care about the warning. They want tough actions. So tough actions is not coming from the United Nations. It must come from the US, European Union. African Union, no, nothing. Even they cannot say anything about this. They cannot condemn, they cannot release any statement. I don't know how they're going to be a mediator anyway. So that's the end of the reading. Let's listen to a couple of videos.
As always, to talk about, given the depth and breadth of the partnership between the United States and Egypt, the work that we're doing together in so many different areas to try to advance regional security, and of course the run-up to COP27 that Egypt will be hosting in the month of November, a very important moment for the work that we're all doing to deal with the challenge of climate change. So there's a lot to talk about, and I'm glad we're able to see each other so quickly upon arrival in New York. Sammy.
Thank you very much, Secretary Blinken. Tony, it's always a pleasure to be with you. Again, the importance that we attach to the U.S.-Egyptian relationship, a strategic relationship that has benefited both sides for now over 4 decades. Certainly in celebration of the 100th anniversary, it's good to have the momentum of constant dialogue and contacts. I think we have many issues to discuss, many areas of cooperation bilaterally, also related to regional issues, and we hope to continue to collaborate very closely with a strategic relationship that we uphold and we believe is in our joint best interest.
Thanks, everyone.
One more video.
Hey, Law and Order fans, it's Mariska Hargitay. Some of you may know me as Captain Olivia Benson from Law and Order SVU.
People of loving service are rare in any walk of life. Leaders of loving service are still rarer. But in all cases, those who serve will be loved and remembered when those who cling to power and privileges are long forgotten.
Part of history, really. It's very emotional. Didn't really think that it was going to be, but when you saw the family and the coffin go past, it was very touching.
God of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and of her other realms and territories, Queen.
Okay. So that's the final goodbye for Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. So today it was her funeral day, and really attended by so many world leaders and fan of Queen Elizabeth and family, friends, in London and around the world. This is a really magnificent celebration of her life and service. And she was laid to rest today. So that's the closing. And we say, rest in peace, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. Again, we wish strength and comfort to the families, friends, and to her fans around the world. So that's all I'm going to say. And I also encourage you listeners, to come out and protest against No More Group, especially right now. Ethiopia may be represented by, we don't know, maybe last time I think the McConnell was at the United Nations, so we don't know this time if he's, I think Abiy will not come. Abiy will not be there. So we don't know who is coming, but I think those who are living in New York should come out and protest this ongoing endless war in Ethiopia, I think, and to counter-protest this No More Group. And we should come out and in support of the United States, EU, and United Nations effort to end this war. I don't know why we are silent. We should come out. Friends of Tigrayans, friends of Oromo, friends of other ethnicities, and all who are, against this war should come out in the United Nations headquarters in New York and protest against this war and raise our voice in supporting United States, UN, and European Union. So that's all I'm going to say for today. And so long and stay safe. Thank you.